today, Wednesday, February 9, 2022. DPP recommends that no criminal charges be laid against a female constable in respect of allegations made by Rastafarian woman Nzinga King. Manhunt launched for a detainee who escaped from the Runaway Bay police lockup. Government reportedly actively considering ways to ease the pressure of rising prices on consumers. NEPA grants permit allowing Noranda bauxite to mine in the vicinity of the cockpit country. In business news, gas prices going up $3.06 tomorrow to 18-year high. The Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, has recommended that no criminal charges be laid against the female constable in respect of allegations made by Nzinga King. The ruling was handed down this afternoon. Ms. King, a Rastafarian woman, claimed she was trimmed while in police custody. DPP Paula Llewellyn spoke with Radio Jamaica's Dion Jackson Miller a short while ago.
She has suggested, her recommendations that no criminal charges be laid against a female police officer who is alleged to have removed Ms. King's hair. Also, that no criminal charges be laid against the male police officer in relation to the arrest of Ms. King. Madam DPP, can you tell us how you came to this?
Well, we extensively considered in our ruling some 18 documents on file and also some 26 statements compiled by both the JCF, the IPRO team, who handed over the results of their investigation to INDECOM, who carried on with the investigation and in fact re-interviewed some persons. And we found that Ms. King's narrative in her statements, she gave about 4 statements, dated August 4th, 2021, July 27th, 2021, August 3rd, 2021, and December 28th, 2021. And the last statement came from the fact that when we reviewed the file, we found that there were no less than 10 major discrepancies and inconsistencies on her statement. And we also found that persons who were in custody with her at the time at the Fort Pass police station, as well as schoolmates of hers, none of their accounts supported her.
And some of these were eyewitnesses, actual eyewitnesses?
Well, there was one young lady who happened to have been passing when she was first picked up by the police, who was able to totally contradict her and support the police in respect of how it was that she came into custody. And in effect, the police had outlined the narrative in respect of why she had been charged for disorderly conduct, as well as indecent language, which she pleaded guilty to. So right along her narrative in these 4 statements, you had very, very grave inconsistencies.
DPP Paula Llewellyn speaking with Radio Jamaica's Dion Jackson Miller, and we'll have more on this ruling in Beyond the Headlines following this newscast. A manhunt has been launched for a detainee who escaped from the Runaway Bay police lockup in St. Anne. About 4 o'clock this morning, the police were carrying out routine checks of the cells when 31-year-old Dale Douglas was discovered missing. Mr. Douglas was arrested in December and charged with having sex with a minor. Minister with responsibility for information Robert Morgan says the government is actively considering ways to ease the pressure of rising prices on consumers. His comments at this morning's post-cabinet media briefing comes just a day before Finance Minister Nigel Clark tables the 2020-2023 budget. Mr. Morgan says rising commodity prices is one of the biggest concerns of the government at this time.
If you would have looked over the last couple weeks, you'd have seen the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Agriculture raising concerns about things such as the rise in chicken prices, about the rise in bank fees, and also the impact that floods have had on our farmers. which also may lead to increases in prices at the local market. So it is something that in the corridors of government and at the highest level, led by the Prime Minister, it is being discussed, and there are constant discussions about what to do to assist local consumers to deal with what is to some extent an unprecedented period in our global markets that is impacting them.
The government has come under pressure from the parliamentary opposition, which has accused it of being unconscionable by maintaining the gas tax despite spiraling fuel prices. Quizzed on whether removal of the gas tax is being considered, Mr. Morgan deferred to the finance minister.
So there are several revenue measures associated with petroleum. So there is no homogeneous gas tax on petroleum. But as it relates to taxation of commodities, I think that's a conversation that we're going to have with the Ministry of Finance, as the Ministry of Finance is where tax policy is executed, and the Minister of Finance is probably the most competent person to pronounce on government tax policy.
Minister without portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister, Robert Morgan. The National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, has now granted a permit allowing Noranda bauxite to mine in the vicinity of the Cockpit country. Last month, the Natural Resources Conservation Authority announced that it had approved mining in a much smaller area than was applied for by the company. It said mining would only be allowed on 1,324 hectares in St. Anne. Noranda was seeking to mine 8,335 hectares under Special Mining Lease 173, but in May last year, the mining minister said the boundaries would be reviewed following objection from stakeholders. It's being reported that Prime Minister Andrew Holness's trip to the Bahamas for the reopening of Sandals Royal Bahamian Resort was at a minimal cost to Jamaican taxpayers. The trip took place on January 27. Minister without portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister, Robert Morgan, today disclosed that an expense of just under $400 was incurred.
The trip was funded by the hotel, which is Sandals Resort International. The only cost that the government bore was, I think, about $380 US for per diem.
Minister without portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister, Robert Morgan. And details about the cost of preparations for the upcoming visit to Jamaica by Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge Kate were not available at this morning's post-cabinet media briefing. The couple is slated to visit Jamaica in March as part of a Caribbean tour to mark the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. Mr. Morgan directed queries about the proposed visit to the Governor General's office.
As it relates to what I see in the media as a visit to Jamaica by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, those matters reside in the Governor General's office. So I have seen the media reports, but I will suggest to you that you approach the Governor General's office for any further information on that matter, as that is where it properly resides.
Minister without portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister, Robert Morgan. Jamaica's COVID-19 death toll has passed 2,700 after the virus claimed 7 more lives. 6 of the deaths occurred in St. Catherine and 1 in Kingston. 2,706 people have now died from the virus. There has been a further decline in Jamaica's COVID-19 positivity rate. 87 cases were recorded from 792 samples yesterday. This resulted in a positivity rate of 15.6%. 2 teachers who are against the 4% wage and fringe benefits offer for the 2021-22 financial year are speaking out and have called into question the stewardship of the Jamaica Teachers Association JTA executive. Principal of Yalas High School, Mark Malava, and the principal of Russell Primary, Owen Speed, have labeled the offer as a bad deal. On Monday, 68% of JTA delegates voted to accept the 4% wage offer. The teachers will also get a book and a software allowance of $40,000 per year. Mr. Malava contends that the government has a history of reneging on certain negotiated items. He said he would have wanted a commitment on the start date for implementation of the reclassification program and its contents.
You cannot negotiate in good faith. If the government has said this, then we ought to accept the government. So what is it that you come April 1? What is going to happen come April 1? We ought not to have, in my opinion, and it's my humble opinion, we ought not to have accepted the deal unless there were certain commitments coming from the government.
Principal of Yalas High School, Mark Malava. Mr. Malava says the JTA was also seeking a commitment from the government for improvements in early childhood education, which was not given. Russell Primary Principal Owen Speed says the JTA delegates were cajoled into accepting the wage offer.
It's the first in the history of JTA that we have come back from the government with an improved offer, and I say improved guardedly. And when they come to us, they were telling us that it was a good offer. You don't do that. What you do is you put the facts on the table and let the people determine whether or not they are going to accept. Sanjay wanted to look at what transpired after the last time we rejected the offer. All that came on the table after that was $5,000 and a $40,000 one-off payment.
Russell Primary Principal Owen Speed. Mr. Malava and Mr. Speed were guests today on the morning agenda on Power 106. The JTA has given the government until the end of March to pay the increased salaries and benefits to its members. And Mr. Malava says the leadership of the JTA needs to have a frank discussion with its members to ease the tension over the acceptance of the wage offer.
They improved the offer by $5,000, but one of the critical reasons why you initially rejected the offer still has not been resolved. But you accepted the offer. It just does not spell sense. I believe that the leadership needs to come to the wider membership of the JTA. I believe that they need to have very frank discussions with the wider membership, and they need to stand and give an account of themselves and how they have conducted the affairs of the JTA.
Principal of Yalas High School, Mark Malava. In St. Lucia, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre has tested positive for COVID-19. A statement issued today by the Office of the Prime Minister said as part of established protocols, Mr. Pierre underwent a routine PCR test. He is presently in isolation. The Prime Minister will continue working from home. The statement said Mr. Pierre is doing well and exhibits no symptoms at this time. The University of California has agreed to pay nearly $250 million to over 200 women who allege they were sexually assaulted by a campus gynecologist. Dr. James Heaps faces 21 criminal counts of sexual abuse against 7 women and has pleaded not guilty. Multiple women accused the university's Los Angeles State, UCLA, of deliberately hiding Dr. Heaps' alleged sexual abuse of patients. Dr. Heaps was based at the UCLA Student Health Center during his 35-year career between 1983 and 2018. The university did not begin investigating complaints against him until 2017. His medical license was suspended by a judge in 2019 for the duration of the sex abuse case. The university said it hoped the financial settlement would provide healing and closure for the women involved.